There's weird, and then there's weird. But I suppose a data point's a data point. Thanks for calling. I didn't have to tell him I wasn't actually going to mark that location on my map. We'd call it an outlier, a real far outlier. I continued. The real question here is, why Speedy Mart? Is it a coincidence? Does the supernatural really have some kind of strange affinity for this specific convenience store chain over any other? Or is it a conspiracy? Is there a guiding hand behind these stories? A dangerous hand? I'm not sure it's possible to answer any of these questions, which is always the trouble with this sort of thing, isn't it? It turns out the Speedy Mart chain is a privately owned company, which makes its records harder to get at. The owner and president of the company is Harold Franklin, who seems to have a typical upper-middle-class white guy upbringing, degree from Harvard Business School, vacation home in the Hamptons, and all that jazz. Nothing to suggest he'd be behind any kind of far-reaching conspiracy. But who knows? For a company that's managed to open branches all over the country, not many people seem to know anything about it. It all seems a little strange to me. I checked the monitor and picked what looked like was going to be a live one. The caller wouldn't give his or her name and city, but claimed to have worked at a Speedy Mart for several years. All right, it looks like we have someone from the inside on the line, a former employee of Speedy Mart. Hello, you're on the air. Hi. The voice was female, hushed, like she was trying to keep from being overheard. So you worked at Speedy Mart? I prompted. Yeah, for a couple of years when I was in college. You were a night shift clerk? I worked whenever I could get the hours, sometimes at night. And did you notice anything strange during your time there? I don't know. I didn't think it was all that strange at the time. I mean, I thought it was strange, but not supernatural strange or anything. These people would come in around midnight about once a month. They'd be wearing cloaks. I just thought they were from some science fiction convention or Renaissance fair, driving home late. Strange, but harmless. But looking back on it, they weren't really the Renaissance fair type, you know? These were all older guys, middle-aged and clean-cut, dressed normal except for the cloaks. They came in, walked all over the store all the way to the back and every aisle like they were looking for something. They never bought anything. Total freak cheapskates. They were just some weird club. I never did anything about it because they didn't hurt anything. They weren't trying to rob me or anything. What was I going to do? I couldn't kick them out just because they didn't buy anything. What do you think they were doing? I said, intrigued. I tried to imagine it. Cloaked men walking around the store, every month during what phase of the moon, I wondered. The whole thing screamed ritual. I don't know. That's why I'm calling. I thought maybe you would know. Well, that these men repeated the same action every month for how many months? I worked that shift for maybe 6 months. It happened every month, she said. And do you know if it was at the same time of the month? The same phase of the moon, maybe? I didn't pay attention. Do you think it's important? I don't know. The thing is, repetition says to me some kind of ceremony or ritual was going on. That means some kind of magic, some kind of power. Or at least they thought so. It may not mean anything. Can you tell me where this was? No, I can't. I shouldn't even be calling. Goodbye. The phone clicked off. Dang. I'd have marked that spot on the map with a big star next to it. Of course it could be coincidence. Some weird local club had an initiation ceremony involving nothing more devious than wandering around the local Speedy Mart. Somehow I didn't think that was likely. I checked the clock and we had the time, so I clicked the next call through. Hello, Charles from Shreveport. What's your story? Charles from Shreveport talked fast. You're right about Speedy Mart. And Harold Franklin, he's up to something. And someone has to stand up to him before it's too late. I assessed the voice. Male, quick, a little thin, kind of eager or desperate. Not laid back. Not a disbeliever calling in to try to get a rise out of me. Not someone with a deep personal problem. He didn't have the accent to go along with his Louisiana location. After doing this show for years, I'd become a pretty good judge of voices. Most of my callers fell into certain categories, and I could usually tell which after a sentence or two. This guy had something to say. And he was the kind of person who thought late-night talk radio was a good soapbox. What's he up to, Charles? I've been tracking Franklin's movements for decades. For example, in late August 2005, he spent 4 days in New Orleans. Did you know that? No. What has that got to do with anything? He sounded like he was reading off a list. Biloxi, Mississippi, in August 1969. That was his first big showing. He was supposedly on a fishing trip right after college, but you know what happened next?